PGA Tour champion Zach Johnson talking about how he controls his mental game.
When I'm in those spans where it's very difficult, anxiety, things of that nature can set in, I always go back to, hey, am I just putting too much into this, number one? Number two, what is it that's doing it? So I probably can't control where that ball goes. I can't control what my scorecard says, but I can control the controllables. You know, my cadence, my walk, my vision, my breathing. Breathing's massive, massive. When I'm eating, what I'm eating, when I'm talking, what I'm talking about, our relationship, our communication, I can control all of that. And so, you know, the more I focus on that and that sort of process, everything else takes care of itself. And it's almost like the ball just leaves your face and you didn't even know it.
Hi, this is Stephen Holler from Stanley, North Carolina, and I play at Collins Ford Golf Club. Brought to you by Dynamic Golfers, this is Golf Smarter number 832.
Congratulations, Stephen. You've just earned a year-long membership to Dynamic Golfers by introducing today's episode. Stay tuned to hear how you can get one for yourself. Exclusive insights from 6 PGA Tour players on their approach to the mental game and winning with Cary Valentine.
This is Golf Smarter, sharing stories, tips, and insights from great golf minds to help you lower your score and raise your golf IQ. Here's your host, Fred Green.
Welcome back to the Golf Smarter podcast, Cary, or let me say, aloha, my friend.
Aloha, Fred. It is a wonderful honor and a delight to connect back with you.
And we do this on an annual basis, and I'm so glad to see you. You're looking awfully healthy. I'm looking at you. The podcast audience is not. Sorry, you guys. But every year we get together because you have the chutzpah, my friend. You have the gall to walk up to golfers while they're at a tour event warming up and start asking them questions. I just love this. So we get the exclusive on some pretty interesting recording. I hate calling it tape because no one uses tape anymore, but some pretty interesting tape on some insights on things that are not covered in the general press. And that's what I love about doing this. And I really appreciate you sharing it with me and letting me share it with the Golf Smarter community and giving us this exclusive. Thank you.
Oh, my joy. And it's, as I said, Fred, it's a real honor. It's a real honor to do this with you. And it's a super honor to have these opportunities with these guys and be able to converse with them. And as you will listen and hear their responses to my questions, they're very candid. They're very honest, you know, and relaxed. And it's amazing opportunity to get to know these guys as people, not just as, you know, golfers.
But you don't get a lot of time with them, and you pretty much, it feels like by listening to it, you kind of catch them off guard. So set it up for me. This is not traditional press, right? Do you have a media credential?
No, not for these events.
No. So you just, and you're at a practice session or you're at the driving range? Where are you when you sit down and talk? Or you don't even sit down, you just walk up to them and start chatting. And you stick your phone in their face? Is that what it is?
No, it is a hurry up and wait opportunity that I just, you know, watch the different players and see where they're at. A lot of times it does happen either on the putting practice green or the driving range. A lot of times, you know, it could be just they're finishing with a Pro-Am event round or a practice round, and I talk with them, and sometimes it's like, okay, yeah, I can talk with you for a few minutes. Or sometimes it's like, hey, catch me tomorrow at this time or whatever. And
that's
I'm like,
blowing
okay,
you off,
sure. Yeah. They've been very open. And as I said, very kind of giving of their information, even though it is a lot of times, especially because of COVID, it's been a little different this last year because the opportunity to be around them is a little different and things like that. So I was just like grateful, like I had this opportunity and like, okay, these, you know, like I had my plan of who I wanted to talk to and it all kind of happened, but it happened serendipitously, all of these experiences.
Amazing. And you do this at the Sony Open?
Sony Open, and then also I talked to Xander Shafley at the Century Tournament in Maui, on Maui.
Okay. So it's when they come to you that you kind of muscle your way up there and catch them, not on tournament days. This is not Thursday through Sunday. This is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday type of thing?
Exactly. Yes, for sure.
Okay.
I totally respect game on and all of that. In the future, I definitely am looking to travel more and meet up with these guys at other events. But because I'm based in Hawaii, it just makes it easier.
Sure. And I wish we had a budget to send you other places. I can't even afford to go to Phoenix on a Golf Smarter budget. So from California. So this time we have, you got these recordings, you sent them to me. I kind of cleaned them up a little bit so that we can hear them better, because sometimes it could be windy and noisy and other things going on, and kind of tighten up on the editing process a little bit. And we have, what we'll do in our conversation today is we're going to break it up into topics and then let you hear each of these pros that you talk to. The pros that we have with us today include Cameron Smith, Jerry Kelly, Marc Leishman, Sahith Theegala, Xander Schauffele, and Zach Johnson. Really eclectic mix of golfers. But beyond doing this for Golf Smarter, you have other motivation to get this information.
Yes. One is definitely as a sports journalist. And, when I talk with these guys, I am genuinely coming from the sports journalist point of view. But I'm also a mental game coach. And I work with all kinds of amateur and pro athletes, and in particular, golfers. So I'm, studying always where these guys' heads are at. What are things that I can see maybe they can improve upon? What are things that I'm learning from too? And then obviously I share that with the amateur and pro golfers I work with. And I get, the chance to get to know these folks as I said, more, I wouldn't say I'm friends with these guys, but over the years, I've interviewed some of them a number of times, and, it creates a rapport. And I just love it. Like, I'm just like a fan like anybody else. Like, I'm pinching myself going, I can't believe I'm talking to, Cam Smith. There was a moment, just if I can divert for a second.
Please.
Like there was a moment at the Century Tournament when it was like Jordan Spieth, it was Phil Mickelson. All these guys were on the tee practicing at the same time. Xander Schauffele, I'm just, a bunch of different guys, and they're all not coming to my mind right now. But I literally was like, I can't believe this. Look at this, all in front of my eyes. Look at these a core of amazing players from the youth of Xander to Phil, and
to the not so youth of Phil.
It was incredible, and Justin Thomas, and it was just
amazing.
It was wonderful, really wonderful.
Yeah. So tell me about your mental game coaching these days. Who are you? Are you working with anybody specifically?
I do. I'll give you a range. I mean, it's a range from high schoolers to NCAA players to professionals. I'm not at liberty, due to our agreements, to kind of share who those guys are, unfortunately. But it is something that I completely love. And just because through my approach, without getting so much into it, Fred, but is a little different than the average bear, in terms of the mental approach. And just I look at how basically you can doubt your way to success. And by doing that, I go deeply into those emotional fears, doubts, insecurities, anxieties that happen whether you're succeeding or you're being challenged. And through the process that I share with guys, get amazing results very quickly to transform those challenges, and they just don't show up anymore. And their level of abilities and enjoyment on the golf course, particularly for the golfers, just totally ascends. And it's as I said, it's super exciting for me to support these ladies and guys in this, and see them progress. So it's a lab, for me. It's constant like neuropsychology and things, and again, like not diverting to this so much, but I'm in the process of doing a brain study as well on this system, because we're finding how the doubts are being transformed are really, really unique in this process.
Interesting. Very interesting. Well, listen, we're gonna go into these cuts and these answers that you got, but let's take a time out right now so we can launch right into it, and we'll be back with Cary Valentine talking about the mental game with the pros right after this. This episode of Golf Smarter is brought to you by Dynamic Golfers. Even if you're hearing this old dude providing insights to playing golf pain-free as you age, don't think that just because you've yet to reach 40 or 50 years old that you're showcasing the most flexible golf swing as you'll ever have. Not the case, and you can't lie to me. Just because you're young, I know that there are days after a round of hard-played, intense round of golf that you're probably popping a couple ibuprofen tablets to ease the pain in your low back, or elbows, shoulders, neck, or even your feet. That's why you should take advantage of the exclusive 15% off from Dynamic Golfers with the coupon code GolfSmarter. You can spend thousands on lessons and all the right gear, but if your muscles are imbalanced, you'll never reach your full potential on the course. Targeted mobility and stretching can accelerate recovery, eliminate hip and low back pain, and restore a healthy range of motion. Beyond being simple, easy to follow, and effective, Dynamic Golfers provides daily video routines that are 15 to 20 minutes long that target muscle imbalance common to golfers, and that's the key. Unlike working out at the gym, Dynamic Golfers sessions are designed specifically for a golfer's body and golfer's issues. Now, I received a note from a Golf Smarter listener this week who said, "Thank you for Dynamic Golfers. I got the 1-year membership and already am up to number 80 on the stretching. Very beneficial in conjunction with my other workouts." Good for you. So join thousands of golfers and Golf Smarter listeners around the world who make Dynamic Golfers part of their daily routine. It's only $9.99 a month, and other than getting a free membership to a gym, there's no better value than Dynamic Golfers. So please, go to dynamicgolfers.com/golfsmarter and sign up for a 7-day free trial and 15% off your membership today. That's dynamicgolfers.com/golfsmarter and use that coupon code GolfSmarter for your discount. And we thank them so much for their continued support of all of us feeling better after a round of golf. All right, Cary, I want to get into these recordings because they're so interesting. They're not long, and what we'll do is we'll group them up. But before we do that, well, one of the events that you went to, as you mentioned, was the Century Tournament, right?
Yes.
In Maui. And that one, when did you get this recording? Because you had a chance to talk to Cameron Smith, who won the event, and it was a tense victory over Jon Rahm. When did you talk to him about that?
I did that at the Sony Open. And
you did. It was the week later? Perfect.
Yes.
All right.
And Cam was so cool. We'll talk about it, but he was so cool to chat with. Very wonderful, kind gentleman, and in this case with Cam, I was waiting for him, he was being interviewed through other golf media at the time, and just listening to his interviews and things, and he was like, "Yeah, I'll definitely talk with you, and just hang out, and there was an extensive amount of interviews going on, and when he came over, he was very cordial, very present, and just like, yeah, let's have a great time."
Amazing. And so it wasn't just beating Jon Rahm, but didn't he have the all-time low score for victory compared to par?
That's a great point. It could be. I'm not sure on that point, but it was definitely
he was 34 under par, 34 strokes under par.
Yeah.
Which is a record. I looked it up. A record for all-time low score on a PGA tournament event. Pretty amazing. So let's go ahead and again, these aren't long, but this is Cameron Smith on beating Jon Rahm at the Century Tournament of Champions.
Yeah, I think just being pushed along, knowing that a par wasn't going to cut it, was pretty intense. Obviously Johnny's one of the best golfers in the world, and he proved it over the weekend. It was so nice to hold him off, but the thinking was just one shot at a time. It's really cliche, I know it sounds, but really focusing in on what we had to do for that shot, and then just worrying about the other stuff later.
Very cool. What and the fact that he must have been floating because he's coming off of this excellent win.
He was.
So he was happy to talk.
It was cool too. I mean, one of the interviews were some folks back in Australia, and they were chatting with him about his parents, and it was very touching, to hear him talk about that, and that due to COVID hasn't seen them for a while and things like that. So, it definitely propelled him into the spotlight in a big way.
And then we talk about people that, he didn't hear about this guy very much. He's their journeyman, or he's been around. But then you got a chance to talk to somebody that when I first got the tape, I'm like, who? I've never heard of Sahith Theegala, right? Sahith Theegala. And then the following week at the WM Phoenix Open, he's on the leaderboard. He's leading the event after 56 holes, 54 holes, right? After 3 days. He was leading on the first day. He was leading on the second day, leading on the third day, and was there till very close. But he made a name for himself out of nowhere.
Definitely did. He's a wonderful personality. It was great to watch him, and at the event, he just embraced the roar of the crowd, and it was a bummer to see that a bad shot on the 17th, taking a bad turn that would have. I was just rooting him on to win the event, but I think we got a new rising star in our hands here.
Yeah, and he's a Southern California kid, right? He grew up in the Orange County area.
Yes, he did.
Very interesting. All right, so let's lead with him, and we'll talk to, let's see, this one we're going to talk to Sahith Theegala, Marc Leishman, Xander Schauffele, Zach Johnson, and Cam Smith about their mental approach to golf. Do you want to set this up on what you would ask them? And, because you pretty much asked each guy similar questions.
Yeah, I'm exploring and digging in with them to talk to them about their arc, from where they maybe started in amateur golf to professional levels, and how their mental game have transformed. And, the conversations were a little different based on who I was talking to and what they shared. And yet it's interesting to hear what they have to say, and maybe when they're done, I'll have a point or two to share with you and our audience about it.
Awesome. All right, let's get started with Sahith Theegala.
One thing I did in college and got better as I went along is, again, going back to the mental part, is like putting too much pressure on yourself and too many expectations and that kind of thing. And once you learn to, college golf is just another step in the direction for, fulfilling that dream of being on the PGA Tour. So as long as you see that more as a step rather than, okay, I got to play my best golf right now, right then, making that, 0.001% progress on a daily basis, as long as that kind of mindset is there, I think that's the way to go.
Marc Leishman.
I'm a really relaxed person, so I'm lucky that I don't have to really deal with any anxiety. When pressure, I feel like any nervousness or pressure that I ever get myself under, it's all for good reasons. If I'm nervous, that means I've done something right to get myself into that situation. So I look at that as a positive if I'm ever nervous, which is not too often anymore. But yeah, I embrace it rather than getting anxious or worrying about it.
Xander Shafley.
I feel like we all end up in a similar boat at the end of the day, but everyone comes from different places and that breeds different mentalities. So I'd say I sort of have, I've always had more of a chip on my shoulder and something to prove. And no matter where I am in the world, I try to feel that when I play.
Zach Johnson.
I mean, I have ups and I have downs. I have valleys in it, and I've also got, time spans where I feel really good and confident. And, the more difficult, frankly, the better I am. So it's cyclical, maybe seasonal. I think for me, what I know is when I'm in those spans where it's very difficult, anxiety, things of that nature can set in, I always go back to, hey, am I just putting too much into this? Number one. Number two, what is it that's doing it? So I probably can't control where that ball goes. I can't control what my scorecard says, but I can control the controllables. My cadence, my walk, my vision, my breathing. Breathing's massive, massive. When I'm eating, what I'm talking, what I'm talking about, our relationship, our communication, I can control all of that. And so, the more I focus on that and that sort of process, everything else takes care of itself. And it's almost like the ball just leaves your face and you didn't even know it.
Cameron Smith.
I feel as though if my mind is fresh, I'm able to focus in obviously a little bit more. So I do a lot of stuff off the course where it can just literally be relaxing, but a lot of mindfulness, getting a clear head, and then, obviously when the time comes, just zoning in on what you had to do.
Okay, so what did you want to share with us about these guys talking about their mental approach?
Yeah, look, I appreciate what they do. I'm around these guys and other professional amateurs. I see what they, the time and energy they put into practice. It's hours upon hours upon hours, the grind. And I kind of come from the Tiger's approach, personally, like enter each tournament intending to win. And I understand that's a fire to play with, fire to deal with in your own self, because you're not going to win every tournament. And yet it sets up a mental situation in your body that actually brings you closer to the dream, brings you closer to playing better than if you just come from the place of, well, I'm just going to play my best, I'm going to be chill and see what happens. And I'm sure, I'll put, these are things that I offer that to everyone listening. Consider where you're at and to play better. Like you guys, right? You spend so much time and energy and money playing this game. And from my perspective, I want to see you succeed. I want to see you have more fun. I want to see you have lower scores. I want to see you have more success and piss off your friends that you're playing so well. And whether, that's on the amateur rank or the professional rank. So, so again, I understand that if you're going to go in with that kind of attitude of, I'm intending to win every time, I'm intending to play my very best at every round, you need to have some tools in place. You can't just say that and anticipate like that being that holding. You might get some wins in your pocket from it, but it's eventually going to turn around because the subconscious here's what you're saying and saying, great, I want to support you. And how I'm going to support you is going to punch you. I'm going to take you down like an inner sparring partner, not because it's trying to harm or hurt you. It's actually trying to help you succeed. But we have to understand a little bit better the communication, what's going on in our 5.5 inches across our head, as Bobby Jones would say, and so these are areas that when I hear, different golfers talk, in my heart, I yearn for, just saying, wow, what would it be like if you did hold this, and, where your experiences would be, because it's consistency, right, Fred? Like, to be able to play better consistently, and to be able to hold some guys, like I've seen, they win and then their mental game challenges them, and we don't hear from them from a while or ever again, because really the subconscious says, congratulations, you did an amazing job. Now let's even play. Now let's get more wins. Let's get more success. But you got to bring up your mental game with it. It's not gonna be able to stay at the same level. I'll give you a good example. When I talk to these guys about their transition from college to the pros, and some of them went directly into the pros, right? Some of them, have gone on to the Asian Tour or the Korn Ferry Tour, but they've said there's been a transition. There's been a process to get adjusted to that next level, to, let's say, the Korn Ferry Tour, and get comfortable and have success there. Then they get in the pro level, and a lot of them have said, when you're playing, no one at first is watching you, until you start playing really well. And then the media starts following you, the cameras start following you, the fans start following you, and that brings up the intensity. And there's an adjustment. Some adjust really well and deal with that and take that on. Some don't. And it's really, it's really an attitude. It's a desire, a hunger to improve, and I would say an excitement for life, Fred. Like, to just like embrace the challenge and know, like, hey, I know what you're getting involved in, and let's do our very, very best that's possible. Now, everyone has different potentials and, different abilities, but that's not what we're talking about I'm not sharing about for everyone to get on the PGA Tour. I'm just sharing wherever you're at to be able to play your very best and feel satisfied, right? Rather than feel like you're in a rut. You're, 6 months, 3 months, a year after year, and that's it. I'm just saying you don't have to stay there. If what I'm saying makes any sense.
Completely. A lot to absorb here. We're going to take another break. We're going to come back and move into more about the mental game and what these golfers had to say about it right after this. Cary, it's interesting you talk about the mental health in sports. It's been a huge topic in the past year plus, where some pro athletes, even amateur athletes who are playing at the highest level, are saying, I can't do this if I have to go and talk to the press and they're just going to beat me up. Because the press wants answers. Why did this happen? Why did this happen? Well, this is like, I'm out there doing it. I'm not thinking about it the way you guys, and I'm not analyzing it. And so the mental health in sports is finally, and thank you to the swimmer, Michael Phelps, to help bring all this out. It's really changed a lot of the landscape for sports.
Definitely.
And sports reporting, yeah.
Yes, and it's, again, to me, the beautiful thing, it brings it down to all of us, every human being, in breaking the stigmas, especially for guys. Like, it's not cool to be, in touch with your emotions. It's not cool to, in the past, to talk about your fears or your worries. And when these amazing athletes talk about it, it gives us all the invitation to be human and say, well, of course they're going through these challenges. It's just we've never really talked about it before. And, it really, for me personally, it affects me. It saddens me when guys and women, talk about, they have to take some time away, whether they're, athletes, musicians, or however. And it really, there's been a lot of suicides since COVID has gone on, and that deeply touches my heart, because it's just like, every person's different, but in general, these people are brilliant, most of these people, and they just haven't been supported, and they just haven't known how to deal with their emotional health. And if they did, life would look very different for them. And they're, and it saddens me. So that's part of, in a way, why I do this with you, Fred, to, bring this out to other folks, to glean a little bit of hope and desire. If you're one who is challenged with your mental health as well as your mental game, this can be helpful. And I'll just be real brief here. Like, I empathize because I myself, what brought me to all of this, Fred, was I was haunted by my mental health and by my mental game. My pursuit very early on in life was sports and music for me won out. And I got the great chance to travel around the world and perform, record with some of the most amazing musicians that are out there. And I was just haunted, as like I said earlier, as my accolades got higher, the intensity in the voice got louder, like said, "Oh, you stink, you're worthless. Oh, you're really, this isn't going to last," and all of this. And what I found, especially amongst artists, musicians, because we're opening ourselves up to that creativity, we also open ourselves up to that emotional area of the doubts, fears, anxieties. And as I said again, I've come from a family that had been challenged with mental health. My mom was bipolar. I had it to a certain degree, but I've overcome it, and it's overcomeable. That's what I want to say. And,
Thank you.
And if I can, I just want to say something too, that with utter respect for Michael Phelps and people like him that share about this, it's so beautiful what he's doing and what he's talking about. And at times I hear him say, like, well, my challenge is, I'm learning and I'm coping, but I'm going to have to probably deal with this all my life. And when I hear that, I cringe. I'm like, no, brother, no, you don't. You just need to, focus in on a little different aspects, and it can shift. And again, please, I'm not putting him down by any means. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying reach higher. And I'll give a quick example, Fred. Unfortunately, too, in my family and my life, I've had to deal with a lot of death. And with death, I've had to deal with doctors and medicine. And what I have found is, depending on the box the doctor lives in, that's the level of what they're going to tell you for the possibilities, for drug opportunities, for chances of survival, all of this. And when you find someone who is really into kind of clinical trials and a constant newest, latest advancement, their knowledge and their sense of hope and upper kind of different offerings is so much greater than someone just who has never done that. And again, I'm not criticizing, I'm just saying, depending on the box you live in, it tells us where you can be. And I'm just saying, we can be free of all these challenges. They're not here to harm us. They're actually here to help us. And I know that may be a lot to take, especially someone who's maybe dealing with a lot of this right now. But I'm telling you, I lived in hell, and I'm not there anymore. And that's what drives me, because I know what pain feels like, and I also have learned to know what joy feels like. I never had it until I really shifted. So this is like, I'm like a kid in the candy shop when we talk about these things, because I'm passionate, because I see the differences. I see how people shift. I see in my own life, and it's wonderful to offer this, even though it's a bit, I'm edgy right now. I know that. I'm putting it out there because I want people to think bigger and go, whatever I'm dealing with, I can transform it. I just maybe need to find the right tool and the right person or the right pathway. And it's not something that changes in an instant either, but it's out there. So
right.
Again,
wow,
I'm sorry to get
you.
on the soapbox. But.
No. That was pretty wonderful, because we see people who are in the media spotlight, whether they're entertainers or they're athletes. And, they get the big contracts, or they sell a lot of records, and they're on the headlines. It's the whole rich and famous crap. And the general public gets confused to, well, they have everything. Why are they miserable? Well, I think the way you explained that pressure of the higher you got, the louder the voice telling you that you were worthless is probably pretty common, right?
Yes, it is.
And we just don't get that. And again, this is why it's so great that all of this information and these positions being taken by athletes are coming out and kind of rattling our cage a little bit to say, hey, take a step back and stop for a minute and watch what's going on. But we want to, we can go on and on about this one, but I want to talk now about, let's go to these cuts. We have, you asked each of these guys about focusing and the grind, right? And what it takes to the grind of tour golf and what it takes to win and how focus can be a problem. And we're going to hear from Cam Smith, Jerry Kelly, Xander Schauffele, Sahith Theegala, and Marc Leishman.
You just had to be on top of it. I just knew that he was just going to keep the hammer down the whole day, and he was going to keep doing what he does best. So kind of the intensity rose, the focusing in on what we had to do definitely rose, but I think we just handled the situation really good. We kept the talk in between shots going really good, and yeah, it just kind of worked out.
Jerry Kelly.
It is competition, period. You have to love the adrenaline that it gives you. For the people who feel the adrenaline flowing through them and takes that as nerves, that's a detriment. You've got to actually embrace and enjoy the fact that you've got adrenaline that can make you stronger, sharper, faster thinking, faster moving. And I love it. I'm Monday through Wednesday, I'm a good 2 handicap, but you give me that adrenaline, it makes a difference. And that's all within the competition. And I like coming out with the young guys, competing. It makes me work a little harder because I have to, because where I'm at right now. But then I get out with my peers out there, and that competition turns into something different. So, you got to enjoy those butterflies, man.
Xander Shafley.
I feel like we all end up in a similar boat at the end of the day, but everyone comes from different places, and that breeds different mentalities. So I'd say I sort of have, I've always had more of a chip on my shoulder and something to prove, and no matter where I am in the world, I try to feel that when I play.
Sahith Theegala.
I think there was a big shift in my mental game kind of late in my junior career, and I was just so serious, and obviously was a competitor like pretty much every one of these guys. If you ask them, they'll be like, oh, I hate losing more than they like winning probably. And I just shifted a mindset of, taking some of the expectations off me, and I'm still getting better at this. I don't think anyone's really perfected this, but just trying to enjoy myself more and play my own game and have fun, all the cliche stuff, right? But you got to just hammer it down. Junior golf, once me and my dad found like, hey, I play my best golf and I'm just enjoying it and kind of play the golf the way I like to play, it works out well. So yeah, it's definitely a mental game is, as a lot of people will say, is 90% of the game, it seems like, at this level at least.
Marc Leishman.
I'm a really relaxed person, so I'm lucky that I don't have to really deal with any anxiety. When pressure, I feel like any nervousness or pressure that I ever get myself under, it's all for good reasons. If I'm nervous, that means I've done something right to get myself into that situation. So I look at that as a positive if I'm ever nervous, which is not too often anymore. But yeah, I embrace it rather than getting anxious or worrying about it.
So again, you were looking in their faces when they were answering these questions. Anything you'd like to add to what we just heard from?
For sure. Isn't it amazing the diversity of their responses? And it equals their personality. Smith, I love him. He's a character. He's intense. And, he shares from his perspective. And then, Marc Leishman, he's a very mellow kind of guy. And you hear his attitude. And it works for them. And again, I just share my question is, as always, are you kind of going after your very best on every day, just 1% better.
Right. All right, let's take another time out. We'll be right back. Well, because you work with so many different athletes on so many different levels, Cary, one of the things that you like to ask, and I love that you do because it really keeps the Golf Smarter community in mind, is you ask them about giving advice to college players, say college golfers who are on their way up, or even to us, to amateur golfers. And we have some great responses here. Want to set this one up? What you were approaching and what you were trying to go for?
For sure, you kind of nailed it, and I do that. I'm thinking about when I'm asking these guys these questions. I am thinking about Golf Smarter, listeners a lot about how it could help them based on what these guys have to say, and again their arc, their journey, and get a little insight to realize it didn't just happen in a day, and what, from my perspective, how that can be for any of us who are listening, how you can improve little by little each day. And isn't that exciting?
Right. All right. So here we're going to hear from Jerry Kelly, Marc Leishman, Zach Johnson, Xander Schauffele, and Sahith Theegala.
One of the biggest things really is not even within the realm of golf. It's the breathing. So you've got to teach yourself while you're doing something like working out. When you're getting your heart rate up, that's when you start learning how to breathe. And you have to breathe way past the belly button. You've heard of people breathe into the diaphragm. You can breathe past that. That's the type of deep breathing that you need to do. If you chest breathe, you're going to get tight up in the chest, then you're not going to be able to breathe. So that's probably the biggest thing that I'd give to these guys is learn to control your breath and use your breath, because that's what's going to give you the energy.
Marc Leishman.
Short game and putting are the two big things, but I think be mindful of what got you there is probably going to keep you there. If you're a good player at college level or in the mini tour level, what's made you a good player is not going to change. You don't have to change things to be a good player at the PGA Tour level or web.com or Korn Ferry level. If you just continue to improve and do what you've been doing, you're probably going to have more success than what you would if you think you got to change everything to get better.
Zach Johnson.
Every individual is different. I think, the beauty and the absolute horror of this game is it's really hard. But it's fun. I mean, it's one or two shots and the individual wants to come back out for more. So I can't, necessarily say there's one commonality. It seems like most amateurs hit a cut, but there's some that hit a big old sweeping draw. I would say the more times you can, create a good rhythm, you're going to find the club face. I would also say the more times you can at least give yourself some practice around the green instead of on the range, the more times you're going to, see some scores drop too. But to find a commonality all around is very difficult.
Xander Shafley.
All you can ask for as a sort of leaving college is an opportunity, and some take it for granted, and some really work hard, and we're able to persevere through kind of a weird time, I guess. So it really is an internal battle, and I think if people can, anyone coming out of college, if they can sort of take a lot of accountability and wear everything themselves, I think it'll pay off, pay dividends, for them later on.
Sahith Theegala.
I think just having people around me kind of drill that into me too, because it's so hard to have that commitment by yourself. I mean, obviously you have to start from yourself, but to just think that you can do that on your own is tough. So I've been really working with my coach on being more committed to a routine, whether it's a day like today or whether it's a tournament round and stuff like that. But still got a lot of learning to do. I've played, 5 events my rookie season so far, so got a long way to go.
I just love this stuff. This is so great. So great.
Yeah, anything for you, Fred, that pops out for you personally, or that really kind of interests you, or kind of helps you or piques your level of interest?
Well, if you're asking me, after 830 some odd episodes of Golf Smarter, it's pretty much all over the map of how does it relate to golf. And if you just look at the last handful of episodes, it's really wide ranging from the mental game through swing mechanics to your health and your flexibility and mobility to what's happening out in the world of golf business, right? So all these things I just find so fascinating, and I just love hearing about this. Now, one of the things in the mental game, you were telling me that you were involved in a book about Kobe Bryant and his mental game. Tell me that story.
Oh, this is super exciting and very honored to do this. St. Martin's Press last year published a book called Kobe: Life Lessons from a Legend. And it's a beautiful little book. And I had the opportunity to narrate the audiobook, to do the audiobook.
Awesome.
And it really was. And part of it, I was surprised. I didn't anticipate the book to be so emotionally stirring for me and inspiring. And I learned a lot about Kobe. So, for golfers, even if you're not into Kobe and basketball, there's aspects of this book that will help you improve as a golfer. For folks who are Kobe fans, you're going to love it. And it's done in a little bit of a self-help way, the material, and it got real. The book talks about his challenges, about, his desires as a kid to play pro basketball as a kid, and how he started to already strategize as a kid to how he was going to get into the NBA and do all this. And, honestly, too, it dealt with the sex scandal in Colorado. And it was real because Kobe, he got to a point of he was about to lose his relationship. And he realized, dude, I got to give as much to Vanessa in this relationship as I do to basketball. And he did. And he won her back. That changed his life. That moment, he really got it, that his actions do affect other people emotionally and all this. And he dedicated his life to obviously uplifting women in their life and in sports and all of this. And so, there's so many beautiful things about this book. One thing I just really want to share that I think golfers can really appreciate is as much Kobe, he was so dedicated to the process, and day in and day out, the thing that his teammates would say, if we don't hang with Kobe, but if you want to find out where he's at, go to the gym. He was just constant, and he was not. What I was so impressed with, he desired to win so greatly to get those championships, Fred, and yet what really was his dedication was improving every day, just a little bit. And he knew if he stuck to that process, the goals he would achieve, even though he was hungry for it, right? And it was just, and he just shared his passion for people is it didn't matter if you're ever going to be, in this case, like a pro golfer, even win, your local club championship. That wasn't really important to him. What was important to him is to let people know, to pursue their very best, that what's in their potential every day. And here's how to do it. Here's what you can do. Stay mindful, work on, your challenges, address your faults, just look to get better every day. And it was really, it changed my life, really listening and, being part of this production, but, reading the book and listening to it. So I highly recommend it. Check it out. Kobe: Life Lessons for a Legend, or From a Legend. Whether you're into reading or the audio book, they're both out there. And it was profound. A lot of people have shared that whether they're into Kobe or into basketball or other sports or whatever, a lot of grandparents are getting the book for their grandkids who are just, either pursuing sports or pursuing their academics, and it's very relatable. That's the really cool thing, and it's an inspiring experience.
Well, my grandkids are too young for now, but what's interesting, I'm having a real blast watching the Golden State Warriors again this season.
Yeah.
After taking it feels like a 2-year break from it, and Steph Curry has been remarkable this season and painful to watch as well. But
Yes.
in the Kobe mode, usually on a post-game interview, they're going to give you the answers. Yeah, well, it's for my teammates, and yeah, I did this, and you hear these standard. The question. You don't even have to hear the question. The answers are going to be the same, and they're going to be just out of the playbook, like from Bull Durham when he's teaching them how to answer. I'm just going to take it one day at a time. Blah blah blah. But a week or so ago, there was an interview with Steph that was, to me, one of the most profound moments in post-game interviews, because the guy doing the interview, who's the play-by-play announcer, Bob Fitzgerald on television, said to Steph, who's wearing the headphones and there's all this activity around him on the court, and he says, do you realize, that you just surpassed Kobe on having the most 20-point quarters in your career? And you could see his face change when he said you surpassed Kobe, and he just kind of was out of the standard interview mode, and he just stopped, dropped his head, looked down, looked up slowly at the camera and said, wow. I mean, it really got him that he did something that put him in the same conversation with Kobe. It was such a great moment. With that, please.
Could I just touch two things? Because I also have really appreciated what the Warriors doing as a team with Steph. It's great to see Andre Iguodala back. I love these guys. I love what they're doing. And one of the things that Steph talks about is like, if your dream doesn't scare you, you're not dreaming big enough, man. And
wow.
And then again, it scares you because you're going to have what you're going to have to face. And yet he, pursues it in his best way. And it's great. And the same, if I can regress one point here with Kobe, that he mentioned quite a number of times that his greatest opponent was never anyone on the basketball court, was his own head. And that's, every time he won a championship, like I said earlier, the intensity got louder and it made it more challenging to achieve that level of success just on your own, in his own kind of world, in his own mental game. And Kobe, I think one of his greatest ways that he dealt with it was just consistency and just keep taking action to hold on to his goals. And as I said, stay to the process, little by little, and you'll get there. And it is amazing.
That is a phenomenal lesson for golfers. It's that your greatest competition is not on the golf course, is not your opponents, is not the golf course itself. It's you. It is you. And so we go to our next series of interview quotes here, and we're going to have these guys talking about their heroes. You asked them about their heroes. Set this one up for us.
Oh, well, a lot of these experiences are very quick with them. And, I want to talk to them about what's going on with their golf game, but I also want to bring out their humanity. I didn't some things I'd love to talk to them about, which I didn't get a chance to, is what music they're into, or what kind of food they like, or who are they.
And you're not getting more than 5 minutes with any guy. I mean, you're not getting long answers and turning it into a Golf Smarter episode. You're getting brief answers with a brief period of time. So it's amazing that you got as much content as you did.
Yes, and so I thought the heroes aspects brings them back to their humanity, brings them into the child who, like all of us as playing golf, who we looked up to and who inspired us. And for us also listeners and fans of these guys, get a little insight. Who inspired them? Who influenced them?
All right, and in order here, we're going to hear Marc Leishman, Cameron Smith, Jerry Kelly, and Zach Johnson on their heroes.
Greg Norman was probably the biggest one. Obviously, I loved his golf game and the success he had, but also really looked up to him in the way that he handled defeat. He was always really gracious in defeat, and that's something that I've always been mindful of. Is it's good to be a good winner and all that, but you also have to be a really good loser, and I think it's more important to be a good loser than a good winner.
Cameron Smith.
I would say probably Adam Scott and Tiger Woods. Obviously, everyone loved Tiger. You know, I was 5, 6, 7 years old watching him on TV at the Masters and stuff like that.
Jerry Kelly.
Jack Nicklaus was still the guy that I looked at as a golfer, just unbeatable in that regard. But Wayne Gretzky was great, and then Lemieux came in and was a big guy who was doing the same types of things that Gretzky was doing. So both of them changed the game quite a bit. But as in golf, a lot of my friends in college would say, "Hey, here I am, Fred Couples, to make a putt to win the U.S. Open." I never wanted to be anybody else but me making a putt for the U.S. Open. So, I looked up to the guys for the way that they won, but I didn't want to be anybody else.
Zach Johnson.
I love Ben Hogan and the way he swung the golf club. I think he's a model for putting a club in someone's hand. I loved Payne Stewart for the way he was both on and off the course, kind of a fun-loving guy. When it came on the course, he was really serious and passionate. And
congrats for getting the Payne Stewart
thank
Award,
you.
too.
I appreciate that. and a strong believer, so
yes.
a giver, a guy that did things the right way there. But some of the current, even some of the guys that are now playing on the Champions Tour are some of my models, like Larry Mize and Tom Lehman. Davis Love's my neighbor. I mean, one of my favorites in the world. A guy that helped me from the very beginning was Chris DeMarco. We lived in the same town for almost a decade, and just to bounce ideas off and use, counsel for professional golf. He was great. There's a long list of guys.
Oh, these are so good. All right, we're going to take another time out, and we'll be back because we had a really interesting question that you had for Zach Johnson, and we'll do that after this. Well, we've reached March and the beginning of a new golf season for many of us in the Northern Hemisphere. So it's time to reintroduce you to Tony Manzoni. For longtime listeners, this is our annual reminder of some of the best golf instruction we've ever heard in the 17 years of Golf Smarter. And for those of you who are fairly new to this podcast, I can't wait to share Tony with you because of all the instructors we've ever featured. Tony generates more interest in email than anyone, hands down. Now, Tony is one of those unsung heroes of golf instruction that most of us never hear about, but are grateful when we do. Tony was featured more than a dozen times on the podcast, and unfortunately, we lost him to cancer back in 2018. And in his 82 years, he lived a rich and rewarding life with incredible stories, legendary golf teams, and players like Anthony Kim, who came through his program. So starting this week on Golf Smarter Mulligans, we'll be bringing back 9 episodes throughout the entire March and April as we spring into a new golf season with Tony Manzoni talking about one of his greatest passions, Ben Hogan.
I had a fellow walk in my office and tell me, would you like a copy of a letter that Ben Hogan wrote explaining how to hit the driver? He had some private film that he had taken and no one had actually seen of Ben Hogan swing. And I almost jumped in his lap. The first thing I noticed was that Hogan, on the top of the backswing, his weight shifts to the instep of his left foot. And when I read it, I thought, well, I think he means the instep of his right foot. And then I watched the film, and it was very obvious that he was staying on his left side 60-40 throughout the backswing. And I think when you really center your head to the golf ball, you must be a little bit more on the left side than the right side. I noticed that his right hip was aligned on the inside of his right foot. And I just noticed that when he swung, he rotated his shoulders around his spine, and his shoulders really were more level than his earlier swings. And the film that I had was after the accident. And that's really when he said, I'm going to start playing off the left side.
Let me give you a quick tip. Don't try to Google Tony Manzoni, because when you do, it'll bring you right back to Golf Smarter. and to Amazon, because Tony's book, The Lost Fundamental, One Simple Move, Better Golf Forever, has been re-released posthumously thanks to our efforts along with co-author Paul Cervantes. To learn everything you want to about Tony, we have all the links, the books, articles, photos, and access to the Lost Fundamental video at golfsmarter.com/Tony. That's the first of 9 episodes featuring Tony Manzoni on Golf Smarter Mulligans, being released this Friday. Golf Smarter Mulligans are the best podcasts from the early evergreen episodes of Golf Smarter that are just no longer available on any podcast app. Please write a review, subscribe, and follow both of our golf podcasts so that you can hear the brand new episodes when they become available. This is not a question that you were able to ask everybody, but and would have been interesting because there's some things that I would have liked to have heard, but doesn't matter. But you did talk to Zach Johnson about his faith. Now, I want to make one comment about the technical part of this answer before we get there, and that is, all these cuts that we've been listening to from these various people. Once you sent them to me, I did some editing, if all of a sudden they get distracted and talk to somebody else, I got rid of that. And I try to get rid of a lot of ums and if I can. It all works out. And I've been doing that most of my life, editing stuff like that. So I feel like that's my superpower, is being able to edit out content in the middle of somebody's sentence and you can't tell that I did the edit. But what's interesting about this one with Zach Johnson, and it's just a technical thing for me, is while you guys were talking, you were walking on gravel and he was wearing cleats. So there was a rhythm to your conversation, and as a drummer, you know this, and that it reminds me when I was I think it was even while I was in college, and I heard an interview with somebody, said they were doing an interview with someone really, really famous. And the person, while they were doing the interview, the person was in this chair that was rocking back and forth, and that they just kept rocking back and forth, and the chair squeaked all the time. Well, he realized later that that was intentional so that it couldn't be edited, because you would hear the squeak change all of a sudden. So with that, I couldn't do a lot of editing to this Zach Johnson piece because of the rhythm of the steps, because you would hear the click, 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 click. You can't do that, right? It's like, what is he, skipping all of a sudden? No. So I had to try to be true to that without screwing up. I think I only was able to make one edit out of something he said and kept the rhythm of the feet. But here's Zach Johnson. Why don't you set it up about asking him about his faith?
For sure. I so much appreciate your sensitivity, Fred, to all of the ambiance, and I appreciate that very much. I just had known, Zach has a faith is a big part of his world and how he plays golf. Same with Stuart Sink, and I've had great conversations with Stuart about that. And so, I just wanted to touch in again with him where things are at, and get an update or kind of get a different nuance about his experience with faith and playing golf.
My faith and my relationship in the Lord is paramount and priority number one. So, I think, the beauty of being a Christian is that it helps identify your priorities. But more than that, we're going to cut left right here. More than that, my true identity doesn't rest in my golf ball, doesn't rest in whether I play good or play bad. And I think that gives freedom, promotes freedom. And when you're in an endeavor like this as your profession, free golf, freedom work, doesn't matter what industry you're in, is great. So, that's where my faith stands. And fortunately, I get off, certainly, but I've got accountability. I've got great guys around me to help me get back on.
Fascinating. So interesting. Love it so much. And I really appreciate that you go into that with some of these guys, because that is not something that would generally be asked by the traditional press. So I really, really appreciate you asking that. We're going to go with one more quote here. And this is just Marc Leishman on his own. And and it's pretty much, well, why don't you set this one up? This is just Marc Leishman on it all by himself. Why don't you set it up?
For sure. It was wonderful talking with Marc too. And he was sharing about his journey for him, what was important to begin to play professional golf and what level he felt he needed to be at to step into that.
All right, let's hear from Marc Leishman right now.
I mean, I think success is what does that. You know, if you're beating people at the level you're playing at, you know, you've got to move up. I didn't want to turn pro until I knew I was going to make money. I didn't want to be a struggling pro, so when I turned pro, I was winning tournaments where I wasn't playing very well, and then I knew it was time to take that next step. But if you're not beating the people who you're playing against week in and week out at amateur level or mini tour level, you're not going to beat the guys that are a step above you. So you got to make sure you're beating the people you're playing against before you think you can take that next step and go big.
Well, once again, Cary, I am so grateful for you being the exclusive in the field reporter for Golf Smarter and sharing some of this fascinating stuff that is not what you usually hear in the traditional press, which is kind of perfect for Golf Smarter. Thank you again. And thank you for giving us some mental game, advice and help and perspective as is always required here on the show. What's going on? You were telling me, and we didn't really get a chance to talk about, so I want to dig into it a little deeper here. You've got a quiz coming up. Tell me about this.
Super. And again, Fred, it's been an honor as always, and I'm so grateful to do this with you. So thank you for the opportunity. And again, knowing I'm going to have these kind of conversations with you helps me. Be honest, gives me the courage to go talk to these guys, because it's not really my personality. I'm more introverted. I do have an extroverted side. But it takes a lot for me to go and talk to these guys, especially when it's the first encounter. So I just want to be candid about this. This is a challenge for me that I'm overcoming by talking to these guys.
Good for you. I feel like we're the same way in the sense that we're both outgoing introverts.
Yeah. So what I want to share, what you're talking about, is I'm super excited. I'm launching a golf mental game quiz that will quickly assist every golfer and kind of share and give them a report on what level they're at in their mental game, and will quickly address the pressing mental game challenges and frustrations, and also lead you to the solutions to that. So how to get that quiz is real simple. Go to mygolfquiz.com, mygolfquiz.com, and you'll have access to the quiz.
Give us a taste of what we're going to find when we get there.
Well, it's going to lead you into questions, on thinking about what are your challenges on the golf course, what things do challenge you, and some questions about how often, or if, let's say, you hit a few bad, is it just one shot? Is it a few bad shots that kind of trigger you? Is it when you're in the moment of success that you get a little nervous? All of these nuances are explored in the quiz, and it's done very quickly and easy too. Is it
essays or is it multiple choice?
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm glad. It's quick. It takes 60 seconds to do the quiz. It's all like,
oh, wow.
Like, A, B, or C, which is your answer here? And kind of thing. And from that, a report will be created and then sent to you into your email inbox.
Wow. Okay. And that's available now, mygolfquiz.com.
Yes.
And you've developed this.
I have.
Awesome. Cary Valentine, once again, once a year, unfortunately. Now with this My Golf Quiz, maybe we'll get to talk a little bit more. You'll get some results and some data that you can share with us by reviewing these quizzes. It would be really fun to have you back to talk about that.
I would love to, for sure.
Great.
And if I don't mind, it's okay, if anyone wants to dig deeper into what I do, that's you can check that out at championyig.com. And that stands for championyourinnergame.com, but I shortened it down. So championyig.com. And Fred, I would love to, share with you the results of what's going on with the quiz and what's happening there for sure. It's, I just have to say before we head out, I cherish this time with you very much, because I also, the normal sports journalist ways for me to share this information, they're not interested in in the areas that I'm really talking about. So, as much, I will just say that. I'll just, there are some that are, but most aren't. And I'm just so grateful to have the opportunity to give a different perspective to such lovers of golf, the golf fans.
And that's why we love podcasts, because we can go in directions that aren't traditional. Cary, great to talk to you again. Thanks so much for sharing.
Aloha, my friend. Thank you.
Today's episode was introduced by Golf Smarter listener Stephen Holler, who plays at Cowan Ford Golf Course in Stanley, North Carolina. Now, because Stephen has participated in the show, he's just won a full-year membership to Dynamic Golfers valued at $90. I'd like to give you one, too. Just introduce an upcoming Golf Smarter episode. All you have to do is click on the Hey Fred button at golfsmarter.com and let me know that you'd like to introduce an episode. I'll assign you an episode number, then you call our toll-free Golf Smarter listener line, and you're done. It's that easy. And you get a full year's membership to Dynamic Golfers. So I look forward to hearing from you. Now, I've not had a chance to play much golf over the last few weeks due to work and travel schedules. And wow, it's really showing up on the golf course. You really do need to play a lot to keep your game fine-tuned. But it also isn't that easy to do when life gets in the way. Listen to me complain about that I'm not playing much golf in January and February. Sorry, if you live in places where you haven't played for 5 months, I'm really sorry to do that to you. But we're now in March, and I know many golfers around the Northern Hemisphere are starting to dust off their clubs and warming up for the new season. But in the interim, over the last few weeks, I've been recording a bunch of interviews for upcoming episodes, and I'm really excited to share them with you. Coming up, Bill Bales returns after a successful showing at the PGA Merchandise Show to discuss golf simulators and his plan where you can have one in your home even with limited space. We'll also meet Martin Wells, a Chivas Irons member and psychotherapist, who will introduce us to a really interesting new book called No One Playing: The Essence of Mindfulness in Golf and in Life. And coming up next week, we're going to introduce you to what is being billed as a new era in golf that incorporates cryptocurrency and NFTs, as we're joined by two of the founders of linksdao.io. Have you read or heard about it yet? Have you been hearing about NFTs and have no idea what it means? Well, we're going to get a layman's explanation of cryptocurrency and NFTs, and we'll dig into their plans to buy a top-ranked golf course and how they raised $24 million in 48 hours. Now, like so many of my contemporaries, I'm a bit confused on how cryptocurrency and NFTs work, so I'm bringing a caddy on for this one. Host of the Crypto Changemakers podcast happens to be my son, Danny Green, and he'll help us learn what it all means and why you want to invest too. Now, I'll talk about the golf. He'll bring in the NFT part, and hopefully it'll all make sense. But it is about golf, I promise. Actually, here's a taste of Danny's latest episode of Crypto Changemakers featuring Johnny Utah of Kindred Hearts.
From Luna for Good, I'm Danny Green. This is Crypto Changemakers, a podcast where we hear from social entrepreneurs, creators and artists who are using blockchain technology and NFTs to do good in the world. I'll try my best to not use any jargon because I really want to tell this story, that crypto is unlocking new possibilities in philanthropy, equity and diversity, and financial inclusion. Though NFTs and cryptocurrencies can be bought and sold, this show is not financial advice. Today we're learning about the Kindred Hearts project from the founder, Johnny Utah. Kindred Hearts is a collection of 7,777 programmatically and randomly generated NFTs on Ethereum. Each Kindred Heart card NFT is composed of 9 different layers created by over 50 artists and contributors. This is the first project of the Favorite, that's F-A-V-R-I-T, community, which has a mission to make the world a better place. Johnny Utah, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the show.
Danny, man, thanks for having me. Excited to be on your show.
Obviously, Johnny Utah, I think you selected a fantastic pseudonym. We're going to call you Johnny Utah. Are you a big Point Break fan? Is that where this comes from?
Yeah, big fan. Keanu is the man. And, I've gone from being my real name in the Twitter world to semi-anonymous to completely anonymous, and really just came back to Johnny Utah is where I landed. So love it.
Well, I love it, and it's definitely what you are to us and to this community now.